and gentlemen, we'll get started with this informational meeting. We put this together to try to do our best to explain what's on the ballot to be voted upon. So we put together a slideshow. We'll go through it, and then at the end there will be a chance to ask questions and comments and whatnot. Okay. So the agenda is to go over the overview of the process, what will be on the ballot, the articles of agreement, and how, when, and where you can vote. It's all Australian ballot. The voting is April 30th, 7 to 7. For Swanton, it'll be at the Village Complex. For Highgate, it'll be at the Highgate Arena. We didn't want to close the school, and the only other building available that's big enough to have voting was the arena. And Franklin will be at the Town Hall. What brought us to this point was the default articles of agreement were issued in November by the State Board of Education. Their process allowed us to amend these articles of agreement, and we have formed a committee in January. The committee considered many drafts and community input, and we put this set of articles forward for you to vote on. The transition board was organized as of that meeting on 3/25/19, and that transition board, which is us, voted to approve the articles and bring them forward to the voters. What's on the ballot? The first article is the election of the following officers, which is the next slide. There's going to be 2 representatives from each town, and these are the people running for the different positions. Franklin, their 1-year term, does have 2 people running for the 1 position. The rest of the positions are run unopposed. Article 2 is you would vote yes or no, but Article 2 is on all of the language for the default agreement, articles of agreement. A vote yes means we adopt these articles that we'll present to you. A vote no means that we have to use the state-imposed articles of agreement. Next slide. So the amendment committee was had to be made up of 4 MVU board members, 3 Swanton board members, 2 Highgate board members, and 1 Franklin board member. And the list on the left is who was on the amendment committee. The transition board was to be made up of board clerks and board chairs, unless they were unavailable, and then the position was filled by that board, voted on by that board. And the members on the right are who are on the transition board. So we'll get into it. Article 1, forming the districts. What makes up the district is the Highgate Elementary, the Franklin Elementary, Swanton Elementary, and the MVU High School. The temporary name that we created was Missisquoi Valley School District, and that has been approved by the state, so that can be our permanent name, or is our permanent name now as a merged district. And the students from the 3 towns will go to the 3 elementary schools and the high school. Article 2 is stating that we will operate as a merged district pre-K through 12. It's just stating that that's our governance structure, that we will represent pre-K through 12. There is a lot of dates in these articles. If there is a legislative delay, all the dates would be moved out 1 year. Because as of right now, they're proposing a 1-year delay. Article 3 is attendance. This basically states that each student will attend the school in their town unless approved by the new board. There is limited school choice. It would go before the new MVSD board for approval. Article 4, restructuring of grade configurations. All the school grade structures will remain the same unless voted upon by that town's in Section A2, the MVSD board cannot restructure any configuration of the school buildings without the town's approval or voted approval as well. Article 4B is on closure of school buildings. The MVSD board cannot close a school without first, a 3/4 majority vote from the board. Second, 2 informational meetings held within the town affected. And third, that town would have to vote to approve school closure. The second part of that, B2, which is on this slide, is that moving all the grades would be considered a school closure, so it would also have to be voted on by the rules of B1.
Could I just add that this particular portion of school closure is one of the areas that differ from default practice?
Yes, it differed greatly. We added a lot of language in to create protections for each town. Article 5, this states that MVSD will inherit all debts and surpluses that existed as of June 30th, 2019. Also, reserve funds will be applied as previously determined. And scholarships, endowments will stay and be used as they have been previously specified. Article 6 is on real estate and personal property. No later than June 30th, 2019, the forming district shall convey to MVSD for the sum of $1 all of their school-related and personal property, including land, buildings, and contents. Article B states that if the school and its land are no longer used as a school defined in the previous articles, it has to be offered back to the town for $1. B continued is a town cannot sell the property for a minimum of 5 years unless the town compensates the MVSD for any capital improvements and renovations. And then the final bullet is if the town chooses not to buy the land back, then it would be the responsibility of the MVSD board to sell the property pursuant to Vermont statutes. We skipped one.
Oh, sorry.
Article 6C, this states is specific to our Union School, the high school. MVU isn't owned by one town, and it's not even located in one town, so the only way it could be sold is if the MVSD board sold it, which is highly unlikely because we only have one high school. So. Article 7, this states that the new forming district has to honor all existing contracts, whether it's collective bargaining agreements, transportation contracts, anything that's in place has to remain in place. Article 8, the current board under the state board's default articles says that we have a 6-member board. We strongly feel that's not enough people to be on the board, so we want to move it up to a 9-member board, which still falls within their hybrid model because it would be 3 seats per town instead of 2 seats per town. This is a breakdown of how the staggered terms would be at the beginning. After that way, there would be one position from each town to be voted on each year. The process to be elected to the initial board is we had to be nominated, put on the ballot, and then voted upon. Once the board has been voted on, they would have to get sworn in. Timeline for the first meeting has already been scheduled for May 1st, which is the day after the vote. We don't have a lot of time, so we have to move along pretty quickly. And at that meeting, they would elect a new board chair and clerk, and I believe there's a vice chair. Their duties would be to prepare and present the budget for 2020. Any of the amendments in AA will require a 3/4 vote of the MVSD board and a majority vote of the electorate to change them.
And that was added specifically by the
Yep. Article 9 states to, after the forming of the board, each term will be a 3-year term. And this is also has the protection in it that any of the amendment in this article will need a 3/4 vote of the MVSD board and the majority vote of the electorate. Article 10, Commencement of Operations, states the new board won't come fully online until July 1. Until then, they will begin preparing and planning for when the merged district comes online, which would be July 1, 2019. Article 11 is the dissolving of the forming districts, which basically means that the 4 boards now would no longer need to be in place, and they would pass their say on to the merged district. They would be called upon in a situation where the new board can't handle an audit or for some other legal task for 6 months. So they could be called back for a meeting for some special task like that. But that dissolves December 31st, 2019. Article 11B speaks to the SU merging into the new district. So the SU, which is separate now, would now just move into the new merged district. And this is a new one. Okay, so this one describes what I said at the beginning. What happens if these articles are defeated? Some of the major differences is the process for changing grades offered in schools and closing schools in the state imposed default articles are less stringent than what the board proposes. Another big one is the number of seats on the board goes from 6 to 9. And the process for changing equal representation on the school board is also less stringent in the default articles than proposed by the school board. When and where to vote, like I said at the beginning, it's April 30th, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Swanton, you can vote at the Village Complex, Highgate's at the Highgate Arena, and Franklin's at the Town Hall. Last thoughts from the board. We'll each statewide what we really thought was very important for these amended articles as opposed to the default articles. I know representing Highgate, one of the big concerns was equal representation. We were very concerned that our voice wouldn't be heard on this new board. So the default articles do have equal representation, but we also feel that 6 members is just not enough to manage such a large school district.
Can we go back 2 slides?
Sure.
The changes right there. Those 3 bullets at the bottom there, the changes from the default articles that the state had handed us and the ones that we have amended. I think those are the big reason for voting yes on these amended articles, because those 3 things would make a big difference in the way we operate here as a district. So I don't know if there's any questions on those 3 bullets. I think now would be a great time to get into those if people have questions on those.
What are we gonna say? I'm Terry O'Shea from Swanton, and I think that we've gone through so many discussions on these articles, and there are some concerns that some people brought that I'll bring up when we have concerns from people. But as far as I'm concerned, I do have some concerns about these articles. I voted to bring them to the public, which I think is great. However, I do think that we're talking about greater, like all these things are true. They're less stringent. They're tougher to get certain things, and that's great. But what also happens as a result of this is we really are not going to be acting merged in a lot of ways. I mean, everybody's going to have, like, there's certain ways, especially when it comes to the reconfiguration. I mean, I totally understand why closure, we want to have all that protection. But when it comes to working with the students, I don't think that those are always in the best interest of the students, the way we've done this. Because I know we've talked about how we can work together, but if we didn't have that in our amendment, it'd be a rule that we would work together. We wouldn't have ratios like, 27-1 and 10-1. We'd have more equity in ratios if we go with the default articles. That said, it's a tough situation. There's a lot of give and take here. I don't think there's enough information about what we lose with these out there.
I'm Bob Berger from Franklin. My thought process as we were going through this amendment process was we had gone out to all the communities when we were going through the alternative governance structure process, and that was the process prior to the state imposing the merger on us. And we listened to the concern of everybody in all the communities that were visited. Connie, you were there with me. And one of the major concerns that was voiced over and over again is they didn't want to merge, and they wanted to retain local control over their schools. And that was the process that we put forward to the state. That was the unanimous decision of 3 of our communities and a majority decision of 4 communities. So it was pretty loud and clear to us that that was what the people wanted to see happen, and the state decided to impose a merger on us nonetheless. So when drafting up these articles, we thought it was important, at least I thought it was important to represent some of those if we could, and to provide some of those same local control to each of the communities that we were seeking to do in the first place. So in that light, I think that's why the process for changing grades and the structure of the school is more stringent, and the final decision lies within the town that decision directly affects, to try to keep that local control intact that was so important to everybody in the first place. So that's why you'll see that, and Terry and I have had lots of conversations, and we've always been respectful of each other's opinions and understand each other's side of the view. I do disagree that this will create every man for themselves or every town for themselves because of the structure of the board. No one town can steer what happens, so all the towns have to work together to achieve anything. Now, there isn't a single town that can decide what's going to happen in your district. Therefore, we all have to work together. If Franklin has something that's very important to them, we have to convince another town to vote with us on the board to make that happen. So that's going to encourage collaboration more than discourage it, in my opinion. And as far as the ratios issue, I think that's more a matter of policy, which hasn't been set yet. There are certainly ways that we can allow people to move from school to school without it being mandated. And I'm sure that the permanent board, once they're elected and begin their hard work, they got a lot on their plate when they take the first meeting on May 1st. But I'm sure that those folks will work together to come up with something that works for all of our communities to ensure that those ratios and everything else remains equal and agreeable to everybody.
I wish you were staying on the board.
So my name is John Ho, and I'm from Franklin. On the MU board, as well as I was on the amendment committee and also this new transition board. So I guess, I would echo a lot of the thoughts that Bob had. And I don't see this as a hindrance to towns working together. Considering where we're coming from and eventually where we're headed, I think this is a good logical transition step that, we provide the voters still some assurances that the voters have say in what happens in the town and in the schools. And moving forward, it's not to say that the towns can't work together and come up with solutions if things do occur, which restructuring or whatever has to happen. I don't think that would be a hindrance necessarily. And these assurances don't necessarily prevent any of that from occurring. It's just to provide some protections on the first level so that the board can't be changed or moved up primarily as one town or another. I'm saying each town does not have a full majority of the board, so that the towns are not. Also, one thing I wanted to note, and for those that have analyzed and reviewed the warning, one of the things that we put on the warning specifically is that approving these proposed articles of agreement from this transition board does not necessarily mean we agree on the forced merger. And from our perspective, in merging, we would much rather have these amended articles of agreement over the default ones that would be imposed by the state on us. So that's really what this is about. It's not that we're saying, yes, we approve of the merger, etc. We're just saying, going into this, and whether we get a delay or we don't, we would much rather have these default articles, these amended articles of agreement over the default articles. So on the ballot, you'll see on the condition that the forced merger is upheld, creating the Missisquoi Valley School District, shall its voters replace the entire default articles of agreement imposed by the State Board of Education order with the attached articles of agreement amended by the Missisquoi Valley School District Board. And in parentheses, approval of this article does not imply approval of the forced merger. So I just want to make sure that's clear that people that are voting when they go see this, regardless of how you feel about the merger, that is a separate issue of what we're trying to approve here with this Article 2, which is to approve our amendment articles of agreement. That's all.
I also want to thank the Channel 15. They said they're going to try to get this available for television for everyone in the public to see by tomorrow, Monday afternoon. So this will be televised before the vote, this meeting. Questions from everyone in the crowd? If you could, please come up to the microphone and just state who you are and what town you're from.
Do a Freddie Mercury here and just do the mic. You think I'm loud enough, Donna? So my name is Kim Gates. I'm from the town of Franklin, a graduate of MVU, and I want to commend everybody who's worked so hard on these articles. It's a challenging task. I can't imagine everything the amount of time and effort that went into these. And I like these articles. I think it does a good job of working together. And as much as I disagree on so many levels with the forced merger, at the end of the day, we have to come together and work as a team. And it doesn't mean you always get your way, but it means you understand what's important to your team players. And I think this article does that. I just want to, I'm encouraging everybody to show up and vote and to support the articles. It's a little interesting here. I had to get coverage at work to come to this meeting, and I think we should have held it in Franklin because we've got a pretty good Franklin turnout and pretty good Highgate turnout, and I'm not sure how many Swanton members are here, but they'll get to see it on TV. But I do encourage people to read these and to understand it's teamwork. You have to work together. It doesn't mean you get your way. It means what's important to all the team players, and these do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Well said.
I'm Gerald Gates from Franklin. I haven't seen the warning, so where is it available to us so we can go and look at it online or whatever, wherever it is?
Town clerk's office?
No.
So I warned them, so I can tell you that they
It's like
should be available
4.
on the franklinnorthwest.org website. All the town clerk's office.
Next one.
They've also been
Next
warned in
one.
public
Next one.
places in
Next one.
town.
There, there.
Places in town. I don't know if I can specify there are other places, but I tried to get that out as much as we could. And we've also worked with town clerk's offices and asked them if they can
Has it been in the
put
paper?
the vote on their electronic signs, but that's where they're available. They're also available in our office, so if anyone needs it, you can also go online if you have access to that, but if you don't, you're certainly welcome to call our office. I can mail it to you, fax it to you, whatever ways you need to access the warning, but it is available in all town clerk's offices for sure.
We confirmed we're going to have copies. The ballot will not have all the language, but we'll have a copy of
That's correct.
available for
No, that's not. Look at Connie, of course she has it.
Facebook site.
Of course.
It must be the actual ballot. Right?
Here, it's on our website, you said?
Lynn Calderwood from Highgate. Just want to clarify on Article 6B, is this part where we can, that if a school gets closed, the buildings get sold back to the town? Is that in the state's articles?
I think
I'm
so.
pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe it was.
That even in the state's articles, the buildings do not get sold by the new district, but have to be sold back? Okay, is there anything different in Section B than from the state's default one?
I don't think there is.
I think we took out some of the sunsetting dates. If I remember, they had a lot of dates of when this could be done, and we took that out. But I don't believe we changed anything else.
Are you checking them? Somebody's got the old articles? Do you have them, John? I think John's checking. John's checking.
And I also say thanks so much for hard work.
Thank you.
At the default, if you'd like to refer to them if you need to.
Okay.
No more questions?
I believe Section B is pretty much unchanged. Except for.
Yeah. Yeah. Article B, Article 6. It's hard. We didn't change hardly anything.
There is one discrepancy, though, that going with the sale of the building. Someone brought this up to me, and maybe this is the time to discuss it. Article 4B or something, Article 4 that talks about closures. There was a paragraph in there that talked about unified schools that are already in unified don't count, and we left that paragraph out. I think we left it out by mistake. So that's a concern about this.
And Julie did some research on
Did
this.
you?
Yep.
A couple of people have and gotten different answers.
And she sent me the answer because our superintendent is stuck in Toronto right now trying to get back. She was supposed to be here today. Unfortunately, was unable to make it. But she did send me, let's see, the article speaks to the town school who conveyed the school to the new district. Title 16, Section 822 states that the electorate of this district would authorize the board to close a high school. In the case of a former Union high school, that would mean the 3 towns would vote. There isn't language in the default articles, but what would happen is state statute and legal practice would take over.
Over the amendments.
Yeah.
I'm trying to imagine a scenario where we would close MVU.
Oh, I could see where it's, if people decide to go with choice down the road or
I don't
something.
think we have that option under the state plan. I think we're entitled to provide that education within the districts. But state plan it says that MVU is one of the forming districts.
Right now.
And that we have to provide that education.
See, that's what I mean. It is one of the forming districts, and that's why, according to this, on 4, it says there, what does it talk about? The forming districts that give.
Could you truly envision a scenario where we would close our school and tuition everyone out to other high schools?
Yeah, I could.
But I can't imagine the state forcing schools, local school districts to do forcing their motor drivers.
Exactly.
We have that, so I would rule it out.
And talking about a whole state thing, I mean,
Yeah.
but we did leave it out because, as you just said, it's a forming district, MVU is. So, but that's good to know that I wonder how many state rules would supersede our amendments anyway.
I don't believe it supersedes our amendments is because we don't have specific language for that situation. It would then default to the articles,
But it,
to the statutes.
that's where I think there's some discrepancy between Julie's point of view and then someone else I was talking to point of view, because we do have language saying that any forming schools given would fall under this rule. The state amendments have something specific for that under that paragraph that I think we should have kept in, but somehow we didn't. So it just means that it'd be up to the voters of Highgate if it comes down to that.
Well, technically it's in Swanton too.
Yeah, it's not just in Highgate.
It's on the line?
Yeah. The
So it would be the two towns and not
Swanton,
Franklin.
so if that were true, Swanton and Highgate would get to go that, if that's true. I think state statutes would always
I would
Trump.
trust Highgate.
Yeah, if it does that, I'm comfortable with you guys making it.
Okay.
Any more questions, comments?
What if, for the main voters, where do we get a look at the state's articles of agreement for us? Because we don't have that to look to. You have it from somewhere, but where does the voter get to look at it and compare what they're voting on?
Right now, it's on the SU website, both of them. I believe it's on the district schools' websites as well.
You did say, Chris, that a copy of this would also be available, both of them would be available at all the polls.
There is going to be both. Okay.
What's the website address specific?
For the SU,
Yeah.
look. The easiest way is Google Franklin Northwest.
Written out.
It's no, just FN. It's right there. FNWSU.org.
Where is it? Because I did try and find it before I came here, and it wasn't easy to find.
The other warning, but your articles are right here. But I don't know where do you know where the other ones are? The default?
They are hard to find, I have to agree with you.
I can search default.
I specifically have asked that they get put under an MVSD component. They're there, but you have to look around for them.
Can we make an action to make sure that that shows up on the front page?
I can have Julie ask Robert. Yes.
Yeah, I went to the Department of Education, Vermont State Department of Education, and it took me a long time to find them there too. But you can find them.
I wonder if it's under Act 46.
I think what I finally,
What did you search under? Did you do?
actually, I looked under the education thing and I couldn't find them, so what I finally did was just Googled state default articles and found them.
I think it would be easier to find them on our website.
And I don't know, I couldn't, I went to the other one to find them.
There's an Act 46. So if you go to our website at www.fnwsu.org and then you go to info, oops, sorry, not info, school boards, and then there's an Act 46 on the bottom. I think that's where most of the information is.
Can you check?
I'm there right now. You would have to tell me which,
Looking for the state default articles.
I need a state default article agreement. I thought it was more.
Want to play that?
No.
yeah,
Is that
Well,
at
well-
the bottom? Agency management, agency is something, articles down low, and that's what we're there.
that's the alternative governance.
I don't think it's there. Well, I remember when we first did it, I thought we put it in.
I'm wondering if it got taken down, so we'll look into it, we'll get it there by
I
Monday.
don't think it's been taken down.
Well, I just searched by MVSD, default articles, every other word I can think of, it's not coming
How about
up.
looking state
No,
articles?
Say at MVSD would be Franklin Northwest, because that's what it was. Look, show for the front page of that, see how it's Franklin Northwest? That's what it's saying, and I think it was on the front page at one time.
Yeah, it's not on the front
Take
page.
a look under school board, possibly on the front page.
I didn't bring my phone. I'm trying to find
I don't believe it got taken down.
I forgot my phone and I'd figure out the link that I'd used. Sorry.
Well,
Yeah, it's not.
I know you can find it if you
Not
Google
hard to have it to have it in a more key location, make it
Yeah.
easier to find. We can do that
But
on
it is-
Monday when our tech director gets back from Toronto.
It is a good idea. I think a lot of voters are going to say, well, wait a second, what's the other
Why
one?
not? You know?
So if we are going to have copies at the
I guess those
voting
three
areas?
bullets that I was talking about were the ones that are the difference.
Right.
You can read it all if you want, but we've already done the highlights.
So there it is.
Yeah, if you Google Vermont State Act 46 default articles, it comes up as a PDF. Well, it says it's a draft though, or there's a whole Act 46 button too.
Yeah, well,
But we'll have it on our website.
Can you go back to the slide with the bullets that we had the differences highlighted?
Yes.
Second from the end, I think.
Second from the end,
Yeah.
thank
It's right before
Third from the end.
thoughts. Nope, not that one. There you go.
This one?
a
So
lot of,
these are the major highlights of what's different between the default articles and the amended articles. I mean, it's a very small synopsis of it, but
when it says less stringent, what the state default articles say is that, like for the years 20 through 22 or something like that, but once 21, 22 start, I'm pretty sure it's that it takes the whole district to vote to close the school, as opposed to after that time, it takes the whole district. We've got it so after any time, it takes just that town. And the same thing with the reconfigurations. After a certain number of years, it takes the whole district electorate to vote to reconfigure it, school. And then with these, it takes, well, the closing not only takes 3/4 of a board vote before you even get to vote as a town.
The default articles only requires approval by the board after these first 2 years.
What?
The MDSD board.
School closure.
To what? To close the school?
Right here.
Oh, right, you're right, sorry, it's just not, it's not specific to the town, it's specific to the school.
Right.
So you just said that the state's default, well, back a little bit, the state's default makes it so that only the school board decides.
No, that was
those-
wrong.
No, so,
He said that, but it was.
yes,
Yeah, that's what.
basically, so in the default ones, Here's the actual language, so you can do it however you want. In academic year 2021 to 2022 and after, the new union district board shall not close any school building or cease using the building to provide direct instruction in at least one grade, pre-kindergarten through grade 12, unless first approved by the electorate of the new union district, which is comprised of all towns.
Which all sound, okay, yeah.
Whereas our amended one requires first three-quarter of the board to get through that first name, and the second one have to be approved by the majority of the electorate in the specific town that school resides.
I would also point out that for that action, that's articles of agreement are for a board-driven decision. You have to have three-quarters of the board before we bring it to the voters, which means that at least one member of that community that's being affected has to be in agreement for that to pass that threshold to be brought to the voters. That doesn't do anything to inhibit or prevent people from petitioning the board, as they always have if they have a desire that that's coming from the voters rather than the board. So that's board driven, which is key consideration.
That's correct, because I think someone brought the question, what if the town, this is just, theoretical, what if the town wanted to close this? Then they wouldn't have to say, because it has to go through the board first. Well, as Bob said, the town can always petition the board to make that, so it can be driven in either direction, but it is required to vote.
Well, the way the state is, that, say Swan's got a bigger population than Franklin, if the school board decides to close Franklin, and then the electorate, the whole district, Swanton could say, well, we want to.
That's correct. So if Swanton had more votes than both Highgate and Franklin combined, they could go to close Franklin. Theoretically, because it's just the majority of the entire electorate.
So this is definitely not a unified. It's kind of saying everyone behave yourself, I mean, it's like saying, we can close your school, we can do something to your school if you want to do it. I don't know, it just seems like it's not a unified what the state does.
And I have to say that we've been working with our neighbors. I'm from Swanton, I grew up in Swanton, my family still lives in Swanton. I harbor no ill will towards anyone in Swanton.
Just in Highgate.
And I pass through Highgate often, to visit my family and my home. So I
If you go to
have
AOP. Julie just said, if you go to the AOP site and you search Franklin Northwest, it comes up.
Communities have the final say
So, yeah.
in the school. I know the concern is that, well, no town will ever vote to close their school, so why, we're essentially making that a non-starter. I would say that just the fact that we're holding this meeting here at MBU would show otherwise, that town would vote when it makes sense to them, and if it makes sense to them, to do something different. So, it needs to make sense to everybody, not just, the larger communities, and it needs to, in my opinion, it would need to make sense to the people that it affects most directly. If it makes sense to them, close their school, whether it's Highgate, whether it's Swanton, whether it's Franklin, if and when it makes sense to do that, then it should be there for sense.
See, and while we're on the subject of like making you work together and not work together, this is where I think, as a representative of Swanton, I don't know if anyone else is in here from Swanton, but we talked about protecting every town, protections. What are the protections for Swanton in these amendments? Because the fact is, we're all going to be paying the same tax rate, except for the CLA, which is going to change it. But everybody's paying the same tax rate, and yet we have no say in anything from Swanton in what's happening with stuff that's definitely influencing the taxes. This is what I've been hearing, so I'm bringing it up.
And what do you mean, Terry, by no say? You have the same, Swanton has the same representation as the other communities, so.
No, they don't. Not when it comes to reconfigurations. Because the fact is, they've got two people, and it takes 3/4. So there isn't the same say.
Franklin has two people and it takes 3/4, and Highgate has two people and it takes 3/4, so none of those communities can directly influence that without working with another community. They all have to work together. If it's something that makes sense, then the communities have to work together. And
You know
so
what?
one town can't make the decision.
But truly, I mean, the gist of this is that I think people agree with the closures, okay? Everybody wants protection for that. I totally agree with it. But there are so many other things that are in here that are making it so everyone's going to protect their own territory. I don't, that's what's written in here. And it's not really working together in terms of all students getting the best that they can get. That's just, I mean, the truth of the matter is, I understand how we got here, and I think that there's information that hasn't been given out about, because it's piecemeal, it's all piecemeal. When people go to vote next, they're going to be voting on their taxes, and that's when they're going to say, oh, why did I agree to this? Because I have no say in what happens in 2/3 of the schools that we own in our district.
Yeah, I'm not sure how.
Ty.
I'd love to hear from Ty.
So I'm going to change the topic a little bit, and we can go back to it if you want. My opinion is the amended articles that we're voting on, for my opinion, is yes, it's the best of the two evils. None of us wanted to be in this situation, but it gives a fair role to every town. To Terry's point, Swanton has just as much say with the district as any other town has. They actually have more when you come down to now we're voting by Australian ballot. And in the last year's governor's race, Swanton had 400 more voters that showed up for the governor's vote than Highgate and Franklin combined. So without these safeguards, it creates a lot more division, because everybody's worried what the next town's going to do, where now you have to work together, like Bob said. And I mean, sitting here listening to just this last debate, I feel, Terry, you're railroading this process. You voted yes to present it to voters. Yes. It's just, you're creating more debate that we're here to learn what's going on, not debate what's going on again. I guess that's where I'm going to leave it right now.
And I would say this to you, Ty, we're here to give public information out. So I don't think it's a debate as much as it's public information.
Any other questions or comments?
My other comment would be, I've heard from people asking what Article 2 means. I mean, I have my opinion, and I'm not going to steer other people, I'm just going to voice my opinion. If a board member could be at the polling...
Just a sec, I want to clarify, are you talking about Article 2 that we're voting on?
Article 2 that we're voting on, yeah.
No, just a minute. Or Article 2 within the Articles of Agreement?
Article 2 we're voting on.
Okay. Yep.
I've had people ask me, what's this mean? I've been to some of the meetings. I explain, and I'm not trying to steer one way or the other, but if a board member has free time on Tuesday.
Is that legal?
To be at the polling place, so people can ask, what that means, because
You just have to be aware of rules.
I was just gonna say it.
You'd have to be outside.
Look at the guidelines, but it's sort of like the candidates outside.
Yeah.
On election day, you have to be so far, and you cannot bring different information inside.
Does that apply to if you're not the candidate? These guys
I have to check really.
I think it's
Yeah, we were told we
discussion.
couldn't.
You said it does.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's discussing any articles on the ballot.
Right.
Right, I mean.
I think you said it.
People can still be outside to have discussions and information, but there is a limit on where you can be, and once you're inside, you can't go up to somebody and ask, what does this mean? I'll double check on it, but I do not believe that's allowed.
I think
They can
Dennis...
say, here's the paperwork, they can't tell you.
I forgot what I said now.
said we're not on.
Can I ask him a question? So Kim, here's what I see probably there will be some people who will be confused about the articles, and I agree that there needs to, I think that people are gonna go in and think that it's a merger vote, and they're gonna vote no. So my question is there, if someone is there, or there's a sign there that says, this is not a vote to merger.
And that's,
You know, that's not taking a side one way or the other. That's just clarifying.
right, there, I mean, it's no different than when we have general elections and you have all the campaign signs. Those, you know, as long as you're outside of the limit, I think it's 50 feet from the entrance to the polling place.
Except I think it's a bit different because the signs are supporting somebody.
It's a bit different, but you can have people out there and you can, I believe you can have signs that say, this article is, you know, this question is not about merging, it's about articles. So you can have,
What we want the states.
I'll have to check on Monday with the state and the town clerk for verification. I think it's great that if representatives can be outside the polling place to answer questions, I think that's a wonderful idea to get people just to understand everything. But you can't be inside the polling place.
I think there's a sign straight up that says.
Does somebody have to be there with a sign? No, we can't just put a sign up.
You can put a sign up.
Yeah, just put a sign up that
But the
says.
board has to be very careful about
Article
putting that sign up.
2
Yeah,
is not
can you put
a
the,
merger vote, it is a duty
Yeah,
of the
ballot
state's
article.
articles for our own article.
Article 2.
It's simple.
Right, there is that. There is that
Article
paragraph.
2, this one right here.
That's the 3.
No, this one. Well,
so.
I mean, that works too, yeah.
Right, that's the same paragraph.
This is,
If you look at Article 2 up there,
Yep.
and look at the very last sentence in the parentheses, approval of this article does not imply approval of a forced merger. That's why we added that, we wanted to make it clear, so we hope that by actually putting it right on the ballot and on the article itself.
I think that's a really good idea. I still think there's going to be confusion.
I agree with you.
People won't read it. People won't read it through.
There's going to be huge
I think
confusion.
there's so many.
I think so too. We were told we couldn't talk about the articles. That's what we were told.
I think that's true. I mean, I haven't seen that written, but that's what I've been told.
Like we couldn't stand outside and talk
Oh,
about
outside.
the articles.
Why
And
not?
probably outside. Well,
I have to check,
Within a certain,
I think what we can do is we can answer questions, but I don't think we can influence, we can't
Yeah.
exert influence on which way to go. We can't say you need to go this way.
Okay.
But we can ask questions that people go. That's my understanding.
So should we stand out there with a sign that says, ask me?
that's what you would have to say. Can
I
they?
mean, school board members can't, right? Individual citizens are precluded from
Right.
writing that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, no,
You're gonna be busy.
maybe it's just that role as board member.
Harkening back to, what was the name of that town we went to in July? Newark, harkening back to, it's not North Korea.
Yeah. Yes.
I missed that one.
Okay, any more questions or comments?
You know, the major concern here is just the kids, and we all gotta get along. You know, I've been going to school board meeting here at MVU for the last year and a half, and I pretty much hit everything. And nobody comes to these meetings. So, you're depending on 10 or 12 people sitting in here to do everything. And if they do something that you don't like, and then you come complain, well, it's already done. You need to come in and you need to sit in and they spoke over these. I mean, that's the biggest concern, is our students. You need to come and sit in here. I no longer, excuse me, I no longer have kids in school, but I'm still here representing other people's kids. The biggest thing is you see people, they trip over $1,000 to save $1. You really have to look at the bottom line. But again, it's down to the kids. And whether it's Swan, Highgate, or Franklin, we all have to look out. Swan has to look out for Franklin's kids or Highgate's. Highgate needs to look out for Franklin and Swan. You've got to look out for the kids. because that's our future. So, I mean, go to the school board meetings. I'll be there. I've been at all of them for the last year and a half here at MVU. And I will be at the one May 1st. I expect to see other people here. You have to give your opinion. You make your comment, you give your opinion. Whether they like it or not, at least you've given your opinion. That's all I ask. Just get along. Thank you.
Bravo.
You're right, Jim. This has been a big transitional time, and I think that's key is to have input from the community, and it's hard. It's a hard job. We started out with 8 people trying to do this job, and it's you could go 10 different ways on a lot of these things, and so community input is critical.
Yeah. Any more questions or comments?
I have a question. So Terry, before when you were talking about, I guess maybe it's services that you were alluding to or something like that, I just wanted to get a better understanding of that. So that, is it that if maybe Swanton has more services for the other schools, is there the ability to bring those children into the other school to get those services? Does that impact that, or I guess,
Yeah, thank you for asking, because what I was just talking about to get the information out there is, right, with the new amendments, reconfiguring things, like let's say we decided, you know what, we're really overcrowded in Swanton. Maybe we could have grades 1 through 4 here, or maybe, in Highgate there could be some spillover, some Swanton kids could go there. Right now we're kind of like we have these policies where only so many kids can change. And that's the way tradition has always been. So Bob says maybe they'll change that. Maybe they'll make it so there's new policies where it won't be reconfiguring schools so much as reconfiguring where kids go. And if that's a possibility, then that could work. But you're having to work against what we have to make stuff like that work is the only thing. And I'm not saying it's a wrong thing. I'm just saying this is the information. We've talked about certain information, but not others. And that's my concern. Like you got ratios of one in one town and you got different ratios of another. If we're really looking out for all the kids, then what's okay about one kid having a teacher with 20 some other kids in their classroom, and another school, the same different kid, just because they're born in a different town, gets 15 kids to a teacher? That's the information I'm getting out there.
How does that apply relative to what we're doing as far as voting for default articles versus amendment articles? How are they different in those two instances?
The reconfiguration is very different, because in the reconfiguration with the default articles, then the whole district votes versus in the default article, if it's Highgate whose school is being affected, then they vote. If it's Franklin whose school is being affected, they vote. And they might say, you know what, we don't want to have different ratios. We like the ratios we have.
I think configuration, the way I interpret that is what grades you offer. So like Franklin offers pre-K through 6. That's the configuration of that building. The goal to change that would be that you're not going to offer, say, the grades 4 through 6 at that building any longer. You're going to do that something else.
Right.
That's what I see. It's not as far as like if you're looking to have, a number of kids that can move from one school to another, kind of choice type of scenario.
But I'm looking forward down the road. It might be that given the populations that we would want to change Swanton to 1 through 3. We would want to change Franklin to 3, 4, 5. That we would want to change Highgate to, to something else that we might want to reconfigure.
I think that would be a big enough change, configuration that we really need, broad consensus among all the towns to do that. It doesn't seem like something simple, it's just moving some kids here and there.
Oh, it's huge, I agree.
That's what I'm saying, so I don't see why articles would be that much drastic than default ones.
And my point is that if I were in Highgate, I might say, you know what, our ratios are good right now, so we don't need to change. Whereas if I'm in, obviously everybody's going to want the smallest ratio possible. I mean, that just makes the most sense, doesn't it? You want your kids to be, you don't want your kids to be in with 30 kids. You'd rather have your kids in with 15. or even more so with an experienced teacher. You know, and you're typically going to get more experienced teachers when they don't have a class of so many. You know, when it's better working conditions for them. It is a big deal. The reconfiguration is a deal.
And then how would that work though? So then, so do all towns get to vote on it then? Because say if you were changing Swanton to 1 to 3 and Highgate to 4, 5, 6,
Yeah.
do Swanton and Highgate get to vote on it, but Franklin doesn't?
Yes.
Or,
It would be Swanton and Highgate, and if one of them disagreed, then it wouldn't happen with our amended articles.
And I think that goes back to the comments we just heard, that if it makes sense for the kids, then I can't imagine that the boards against the communities would be opposing.
That's pulling a card, Bob, because if it's really all about the kids, we wouldn't even need that. We wouldn't even need that. We wouldn't need that strictness if we were thinking of all kids.
It's interesting because there are scenarios which make more sense. In Franklin, Rice Hill Road goes through Franklin, Highgate, and Shelton. And some of those kids are much closer to Franklin School and Highgate School. You know, there are ways that should be open for communication. But I am sure that Swanton voters would want to say, all of a sudden you said we're going to change, you know, 5th and 6th grade from being in Swanton somewhere else. That I find it hard to believe that Swanton voters would want to say in that discussion. It's not saying that none of this can happen. It's saying that we really have to have open discussions and communications. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with letting people vote, and it does come down to dollars. I mean, we all want to support our kids, but the reality is when people stand there and see the gajillion-dollar budget for the school, I don't care what you do, it's hard for everybody to look at that number. And you know, I feel bad for the new school board because, you know, depending on what people feel like that day, they had a crappy day or their car broke down or whatever, they look at that number and they're like, can't afford this.
I know.
You know, we all have to work together because it's going to be a hard uphill, anything we do. Anything we do is going to be a hard uphill. And it's not a perfect solution for everybody.
And I guess the reason that I voted yes for this is because I know that we have to all work together. And people in Franklin and Highgate feel so strongly about it. That's the only way we're going to be able to work together. And I think there's information that needs to get out, because I don't want people saying to me afterwards, why didn't you get me this information? You know, why were you working only for Franklin and Highgate? Why weren't you representing Swanton?
Connie?
Some is a retired social studies teacher, so history is important. In this case, history is important as it informs what we do. And there are lots of examples when the 3 elementary schools have worked together for the benefit of students. Like the students finishing their school year because their parents have moved. Highgate had a student going to Sheldon because there was a certain type of program for this student's challenges that Highgate didn't offer. So this student, Sheldon accepted this student. And there are just many, many of those examples. So if I were to look to the future, after we get over our territorial concerns, and Lord knows Connie has some of those as well, I think we're going to find that this is going to work very well. I'm guessing that when MBU was formed, they had some of the same issues that happened with MBU. So, and when you decide to move classes or that decision impacts lots of different things, including transportation. So I think after we get over the initial phases, I think it's going to happen. I think if there are people who want to make it work, if there are people who want to throw rocks at it, then board members, a lot of people will catch those rocks for
They're duck.
To make a comment, I think that totally a good example of people working together, because if you look at, I mean, I've followed obviously MVU for many, many years, minutes and all those kinds of things. And what I hear MVU board members, which is equal representation, arguing about, not about, well, I don't think that's right for Franklin, I don't think that's right for Highgate. No, they're saying, I want this program for our kids at MVU. And they're talking about all the kids. They're not talking about just Highgate kids, Swanton kids. And that's what I'm hearing. I hear that all the time. Like, I heard that they wanted the agricultural program. Nobody said, because I want that for my Swanton kids. No, they wanted it for all the kids. They just wanted that particular program. So they're fighting for programs for all the kids. And so I think MVU is kind of a fun example of unity on the school board.
You're on the same school? So help me out here, folks, in terms of public information. What can I tell the public in terms of what's going to happen to ratios at the elementary school? Teacher-student ratios.
You come to a school board and you discuss the ratios. You come to a meeting. You voice your concerns and you voice your solutions. I mean, you can't just be back on Facebook posting stuff. You have to come forward and say, here's a concern. That's what everybody does. We all know it. They're on Facebook. They're just posting, whatever.
Yeah, I don't do Facebook.
Lucky, but they have to come to school board meetings, and you want to applaud you for coming, and I only stuck it after like 4 or 5 meetings, but I'm glad you've done for a year and a half. But that's what you have to do. If something, you want change for all our students, you come to the school board meeting and you open a discussion at a board that can make changes.
John, you're going to be on that? No, you didn't go on that.
One question I have about this.
I was just going to say, just a comment, I mean, don't always be the sore thumb. We don't need the sore thumb.
What does that mean?
I can go to a school board meeting, I'm going to use Dennis as an example, sorry Dennis. I could disagree with Dennis, be angry with Dennis, but when we walk out of this school board meeting, I can still say, good night, Dennis, have a good night. And that's what you need to do. You do your thing here, it's done with, and then you be a human being when you walk out the door.
Lynn?
One question about, you talk about ratios, and it sounds like, a simplified version of what you're saying. What it sounds like is that you think that whichever town has a higher ratio, or more students per teacher, should be able to filter their kids to another school that has a lower, has a better ratio. I see that as being a problem in 3 ways. One is taking the child out of their own community, and the school is the heart of the community. I think that's what this whole thing is. The school is the heart of the community, and there has been a big drop in volunteerism. You just ask the firemen, because kids are being taken out of their towns, out of their community. They don't feel the community, and they're busy. Also, you've got who decides which kids go where. What if, whoever's deciding says, hey, we got problem kids here, let's send them, they aren't making good grades. No, all things on the paper, okay? These aren't making good grades. Franklin gets really good grades, let's send them to Franklin so Franklin can bring up their grades. But they then cause problems for Franklin, okay? Or, here's another scenario. People who want their kids to go to another school that may have better programs. And so those who choose to go to another school, those who get chosen to go to another school, and those who are removed farther from the families, farther from the community, and lose touch with their own community. That is part of Vermont that makes it special. We are a community. That's what this whole thing with merger is damaging, is the feelings of community. And that's not a bad thing. It's like saying, well, you can't have a family. Let's spread the family all over the place. No, community is family. So those are 3 things that I see as the ratio thing of just deciding, well, we're going to distribute kids here, there, and everywhere to even out the ratio. When it's more than just, you know, because you can have one teacher and 50 kids. Well, I don't know who those. But, you know, you've got different teachers can handle different amounts. But on paper, you can say, oh, she doesn't have enough, or she has too many, or something like that. It's just too much statistics and data and not heart.
Can I just say one thing? I don't agree with all that you just said. I think that the first thing is that the Missisquoi Valley's, what's it,
Missisquoi Valley School District.
School district has to say, is the guiding principle has to be that all kids can learn and we want the best for all our kids.
That's good.
And so, and it needs to be, and so we're dividing our kids up based on their towns, and we need to make sure that they're all getting the best that we can give them. So,
And that's good.
and if we can't do that, then that would be a huge injustice to our next generation if we're going to take their reading as well.
And Chris is going to be on that new school board.
If I get voted. To that point, too, I'd also like to say that nobody wanted Act 46, but this is the hand we've been dealt. We are trying to make the best of the hand dealt to us. And we're actually, if we do move forward with the merge, as it looks like we're going to have to, I mean, my personal goal, or what I would like to see, is that we develop a new community as the MVUSD instead of just Highgate, Franklin, and Swanton. Because like Connie said, it is all about the kids, and for every single kid, not Swanton, Franklin, or Highgate, all of them. I mean, that's my goal, and that's what I really am hoping to work towards on the new merge board. I mean, like I said, none of us wanted it, but this is the hand we've been dealt. So we're trying to put together a plan and move forward in the best possible way for everyone. And I will say, I've been on both the committees, and I felt the towns worked very well together. I mean, we had a lot of debate back and forth. We tried to represent everyone as best as we could. Our timeline is very short, and we have to make a lot of decisions very quickly.
Yeah.
So that's some of the reason why we're having a lot of debate at an informational meeting. I mean, we're learning as we go. Any other questions and comments? Hearing and seeing none, I thank you everyone for coming. Voting will be April 30th on Tuesday at 7 to 7. For Swanton, it'll be at the Swanton Complex. Highgate will be at the Highgate Arena, and Franklin will be at the Town Hall. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.